Chapter 81 Codename and Captain. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Transformation technique. As Naruto finished the seal, a white smoke rose. When the smoke fell, Xia Li saw himself standing opposite him. At this time, he couldn't help but take a closer look, nodded and said, "Not bad, but the details need to be improved." Naruto scratched his head and looked at his hands again. It seemed that he was indeed a little relieved. As expected, Xia Li would not deceive him. The excited Naruto started to seal again. This time it was clone technique. However, this time Naruto's clone was a little deformed, and it was possible to distinguish which was the original and which was the clone at a glance, but Naruto was excited when he saw his clone, because although it was a little deformed, he finally used it successfully, unlike the previous clones that were gray and white and lay on the ground. Even if he used all his strength, now, as long as he keeps working hard, he feels that he has hope of learning it. Xia Li nodded when he saw this scene. He certainly knew what level Naruto was at before, and it can be said that his progress was very obvious. In the future, as Naruto's physique improves, he will come over a few more times. This will be of great benefit to Naruto, and Xia Li can also quickly understand the 8-diagram seal and the 4-symbol seal, which is perfect. As for whether this will prevent Naruto from getting the multiple shadow clone technique, that is impossible. After all, Naruto is basically the only one who can use that thing in Konoha now, and the third generation will definitely find a reason to give it to Naruto. Moreover, this may also deepen the relationship between the third generation and Naruto, so he will not steal the third generation's work. Besides, it is not very good for him to teach Naruto shadow clone. It is okay to pass on ninjutsu from family, and generally the higher-ups will not care. But if the two people have no special relationship, such as family, master and apprentice, then they still cannot pass it on casually, otherwise it will be a mess. Xia Li. Naruto looked at Xia Li at this time, and then he looked like he wanted to cry, and his nose and tears were about to come out. I'm telling you, don't rush over. Xia Li didn't want to be smeared with the other's snot and tears. Yeah. Xia Li, I'll treat you to Ichiraku ramen. Naruto didn't know how to thank him. After thinking for a long time, he could only say, Xia Li, eat as much as you want, I can pay. Yeah, that's what you said. Xia Li nodded and smiled. He has a big appetite. Then Xia Li looked at the excited Naruto and couldn't help but stretched out his hand to rub Naruto's slightly prickly golden short hair, saying, "Come on, try to surpass Sasuke." Okay. I'll work hard. Naruto also answered with full energy after hearing it. By the way, Naruto, don't tell others this trick. Xia Li said at this time. Yeah, I know Xia Li. If you tell it, everyone will come to Xia Li, and you will be very annoyed, haha. Naruto scratched his head and laughed. Walking out of the door, Xia Li felt the gazes from the surroundings and couldn't help but sneer. The words of the Umbu were okay, neither he nor Naruto had any ill will. The words of the root were different. Xia Li could clearly feel that the other party was staring at him with some impoliteness. Even in Naruto's house, these guys wanted to observe him. If he didn't draw the curtains, he would probably continue to stare, but Xia Li had no choice now. He could only pretend that he didn't sense it and followed Naruto away. In the evening, after parting with Naruto, Xia Li also returned home, and then he saw a table of sumptuous dinner, and looked at the unnatural smile on his mother's face. Xiao Xia Li, I won't say more, but you must come back safely, please. Sinai smiled at Xia Li, tears flashing in his eyes, and said, as for Xia Li, although he had eaten some ramen, he nodded silently after seeing his mother's appearance at this time, and then silently walked to the table and sat down, and moved his chopsticks. Sinai looked at Xia Li. When Xia Li told her that he had graduated, she was really a little panicked. The news of her husband's death kept playing in her mind. She was really afraid. She was afraid that she would receive that kind of news again at home. Xia Li was her last support in this world, but Sinai also knew that her son would definitely achieve great success. He was the apprentice of the 3 ninjas and the grandson of the 3rd generation of Hokage. She couldn't delay her son's future because of herself, so she couldn't cry in front of her son. She had to work hard and smile, even if she was panicked and scared, Sinai would not stop it. She would stay here silently in this house, waiting for her son to complete the mission and return. She also believed that her son would definitely come back every time, because that was all her pride and sustenance for the rest of her life. The next day, Xia Li also received a notice from the Umbu and came to the Hokage's office. Xia Li, your team has been arranged. The third generation looked at Xia Li, who came in and said with a smile. Thank you, Grandpa Sandai. Xia Li's eyes lit up as he thanked him, then he saw the mask and a knife on the table. Well, this is the mask and weapon I picked for you, try them out. Sandai also noticed that Xia Li had noticed these, and he stroked his beard and said. Okay. Xia Li took the mask and looked at it carefully. There was basically nothing special about it, and there was no color at all. If it was worn on the head, it would be like a faceless man. Xia Li attached the mask to his face and then fixed it with chakra. Xia Li thought that the position of the eyes would block some of his vision, but in fact, with the blessing of chakra, the vision was not blocked at all. It seems that this mask is also specially made. Looking at this knife again, compared with the traditional samurai sword, its blade has no arc, but the cold light shows that it is absolutely sharp. Xia Li stroked the blade and felt a little happy. Do you like it? Sandai said with a smile. This was specially picked by him. Ordinary Umbu can't get this kind of weapon. It's usually just a standard weapon. I like it. Thank you, Grandpa Sandai. Xia Li put the knife back into the scabbard and put it on his back. As long as you like it. The third generation was even happier after hearing this. After thinking for a while, he asked again, Xia Li, have you thought of your code name? Generally, it's some animal code name, of course, other codes are fine. Then let's call it Moing. Xia Li said casually. The name is fine. Okay. After the third generation nodded, he knocked on the table without any nonsense. The next moment, a figure pushed open the door of the office and walked in. Tianzong, this is your new team member, Moing. The third generation said after seeing Tianzong walk in, Moing, this is your future captain, Tianzong. Yes, Lord Hokage. Tianzong and Xia Li replied at the same time. Tianzong and Xia Li also looked at each other. When Tianzong saw Xia Li, he felt a little cold in his heart. This person looked like a child. Did he let him take care of the child? His team was quite efficient. At this time, a child was stuffed in. Was he from a big family who came in to gain experience? To be honest, Tianzong was a little reluctant. If the young master of a big family who came here to train like this gets into trouble in his team, then his team will be finished. But the order of the Hokage cannot be disobeyed, and he can only take care of him carefully. If it really doesn't work, let him stay behind, Tianzong was thinking, and his first impression of Xia Li was a bit bad, and Xia Li was also thinking. He seemed to have some memory of the name Tianzong, but he forgot who it was. However, since he had some impression, he should be a ninja who survived to the later period, so his strength is probably good, and he should be a good captain. P.S. Thank you for the 500 starting coins from Meijio Sweet Potato I love. Thank you for the 100 starting coins from Zhou Tiandi in recent days that I will continue to work hard, thank you. Chapter 82 Team Configuration. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Okay, Tianzong, take Moing to get familiar with your team, and work together well in the future. The third generation also said when he saw this scene, he was not too worried. After all, Xia Li's strength is there. Although he may be questioned in the early stage, he believes that he will soon get rid of the doubts and quickly become the backbone of the team, that is his grandson, and the talent visible to the naked eye makes the third generation not doubt Xia Li's strength. Yes. Tianzong answered, took a look at Xia Li and walked in front, and Xia Li also followed Tianzong silently, came to a more hidden place and walked in. Sure enough, the location of the dark department is still relatively hidden. He has been wandering around for so many years and didn't find this place. Soon, Tianzong took Xia Li to a small room. There were two other people in the room, and there was a gray and white dog that looked like a wolf. It should also be a member of their team. Captain. After seeing Tianzong, the two also stood up and said, looking very respectful to Tianzong. Xia Li saw this, and he could tell something from this little action. It seemed that Tianzong was a good person. Well, hyena, fox, this will be a new member of our team in the future. Mo-ing, let's meet each other. Tianzong nodded and introduced Xia Li to his team members. Xia Li looked at them. Hyena should be the one wearing a dog mask. It was obvious that he was wearing a wolf dog. He was probably from the Inuzuka family. The other one wearing a fox mask should be the fox, but he couldn't see any characteristics. Hey, Captain, you are not kidding, right? He looks like he is only about 12 or 13 years old. How could he be a member of the Umbu, and a future member of our team? Hyena was the first to stand up and question loudly. Hyena, the captain won't make such a joke. The fox next to him said with dissatisfaction, but also stared at Tianzong, hoping that Tianzong could give them an explanation. You know, if they bring a burden, then their mission completion rate may be greatly reduced. That's all, they may also be in danger of their lives. Well, I'm not kidding. Mo-ing was assigned to our team by Lord Hokage. Tianzong said, not helping Xia Li to hide it. Suddenly, the hyena and the fox stopped talking. Looking at Xia Li, they all understood that this person should be a child from a big family. Now that Uchiha is gone, could it be Hyuga? But the eyes don't look the same. Or is he the child of some elder? Anyway, they all got in through connections, which made them even more uncertain about the strength of the newcomers, but they didn't say anything else. After all, the captain said so, which meant that it was a foregone conclusion and could not be changed. Well, newcomer, your name is Mo-ing, right? I don't know which family you are, but you'd better not hold us back in the future. The hyena stared at Xia Li and said directly in an unhappy voice. Don't worry, I won't be the one who holds us back. Xia Li's calm voice sounded. I hope so. The hyena curled his lips and was relieved. His personality was good. The most worried thing didn't happen. If he still had the arrogance of a child from a big family, it would be over. Not only the hyenas, but also Tenzang and Fox were obviously relaxed. Of course, not only them, Xia Li was also quickly collecting information about his teammates. Seeing their actions, he could guess their thoughts. He was not angry, which was the right thing to do. He was also a little relieved about his teammates. Okay, let's introduce ourselves to each other first, and explain our abilities a little bit, so that it will be convenient for future cooperation. Tenzang said at this time. Mo-ing, you should know from Lord Hokage that I am Tenzang, the captain of this team, with the ability of Wood Release, and the main attacker of this team. Tenzang broke out a big news at the first time. Wood Release. Xia Li opened his eyes wide instantly, and instantly understood who Tenzang was. Isn't this Yamato? At this time, Xia Li's increasingly blurred memory was also quickly searched. Yamato should have been born in the root, and later he did join the Umbu. In terms of personality, he can temporarily replace the teacher of Team 7, which should be good and trustworthy. In terms of strength, Yamato can be considered a strong jonin. Even if he is still a few years away, Yamato's strength should not be much different. At least he is still a jonin. At this time, Xia Li was also a little surprised. His identity was really amazing. He was actually put into a jonin team for the first time. Others were used to Xia Li's surprise. Anyway, everyone had this reaction when they heard about Wood Release. Even if he came from a big family, so what? Aren't they still so surprised? Yes, that's right, it's Wood Release. I can't say more about the details. You just need to know it. Xia Li nodded, and didn't ask any more questions. He looked at the others. It's my turn. I'm Hyena. I'm responsible for scent detection and auxiliary attack in this team. Hyena said carelessly, and the wolf dog beside him also shouted at this time. This is my partner, Grey Fawn. Hyena patted his partner. Well, it's my turn. I'm Fox. I'm in charge of logistics and treatment in this team. If you need some supplies in the future, you can come to me. For example, the price of Bingliang pills will be cheaper than normal, but I think you shouldn't be short of them. Fox said in a somewhat cold voice. No, it's still missing. I'll leave it to you in the future, Senior Fox. Xia Li's eyes lit up and he said, although he heard that the thing didn't taste good, it was indeed a good necessity. After hearing what Xia Li said, Fox was stunned, and then his tone softened a little and said, Senior, there's no need to call me Senior. This is not popular in the team. Just call me Fox. Okay. Xia Li did not refuse, nodded and said, I'm MOing, I'm good at chakra perception and quick attack, and my future position will probably be auxiliary attack, but I have to wait for the captain to assign a position after I show some performance in the future. After Xia Li finished speaking, the three people's eyes lit up. They didn't expect anything in terms of quick attack, but chakra perception was definitely useful. Therefore, even if Xia Li couldn't count on any combat power in the future, it wouldn't be useless. The most important thing was that in this way, Xia Li's safety would be much higher. If the young master of a big family died, their team would be in trouble. Xia Li was also thinking about the configuration of this team. The reconnaissance, medical and main attack were all complete. The configuration was already very good, and now with his perception, no matter how you think about it, it seems to be a pretty good configuration. Chapter 83 The First Mission. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. After everyone was introduced, Tianzong also told Xia Li how their team could contact each other. They thought that with a new member, it would take a few days before there would be a mission, but they didn't expect that the first mission after the new member came was issued directly the next day. Xia Li at home also saw the information about their team's gathering soon. After silently leaving a letter to his mother, he put on a mask, carried the knife on his back, and rushed to the gathering location. Tianzong looked at Xia Li, who arrived first, and his eyes lit up. It seems that the speed of the quick attack that Xia Li mentioned was not just a casual talk. At least the speed of rushing over was really fast. After a while, the hyena and the fox also arrived late. Everyone is here, so take a look at this mission. It's not the mission I received, but the mission assigned to me. Take a look. Tianzong said, opening a scroll and placing it on the ground for everyone to see. Hey, isn't this a mission for novices? Why was it assigned to an elite team like us? The hyena's dissatisfied voice sounded. The mission for novices means that the reward for the mission is not very high. Hyena, there is a newbie in our team. Fox said in a muffled voice. He didn't have any objection, but was relieved. He was not very interested in that kind of dangerous mission, but rather this kind of non-dangerous mission was better. It seems that Xia Li's joining is not a bad thing, Fox thought, at least in this case, the higher-ups probably won't assign some particularly dangerous missions. Well, it seems so. Hyena looked at Xia Li and nodded, without saying anything more. Xia Li looked at the mission, his eyes flashed, and then he looked at Tianzong and asked, Captain, do we need to act together for such a mission? Yes, as a team, we should act together no matter what the mission is. Tianzong also gave an accurate answer. Okay. Xia Li nodded, and didn't ask any more questions. In his opinion, he could even do this kind of mission alone, because the mission showed that the opponent had no ninja. Then a Jonin and 3 Chunin were sent for such a mission. Although Hyena and Fox didn't say their own strength, Xia Li could guess that Konoha didn't have so many Jonin arranged in one team. Isn't this a waste? Since you think it's too simple, then we should act quickly this time and arrive at the scene within 2 days to complete the mission. Tianzong said so. Neither the hyena nor the fox said anything. Xia Li calculated the distance and found that 2 days was more than enough. However, the others didn't know that the hyena still said with the usual thinking, Fox, let Huya carry you. No, let Moying take it. The fox said in a muffled voice. In his opinion, Xia Li was the one who needed to be taken care of the most compared to him. I don't need it. I can keep up with the speed. Xia Li said directly after hearing it. Fox, you ride Huya. Tianzong settled down directly. He just saw the speed at which Xia Li rushed over. It was indeed not slow, but he didn't know how strong his physical strength was. Yes. The fox didn't object this time. Since the captain said so, he should have his reasons. In that case, start to act. Tianzong said, and his figure disappeared on the spot. The hyena and the fox riding Huya also followed silently. For the first time, they all deliberately slowed down, and then saw Xia Li behind them acting as if nothing had happened, and slowly sped up. Even at the back, the hyena had the idea of competing, and rushed forward at a speed faster than usual. Tianzong and the fox followed reluctantly. Did they want to show off their power to the newcomers? Unfortunately, the hyena's speed was just so in Xia Li's eyes. He could now be classified as a ninja with speed and physical strength, so Xia Li quickly followed. Maybe the hyena will be embarrassed. Tianzong watched this scene silently and couldn't help thinking, as expected, the hyena couldn't support it for a long time at such a speed, and soon became a little out of breath, but the gray fangs holding the fox didn't move. Sure enough, the physical strength of animals is still higher than that of humans. Hyena, slow down a bit, I'm a little tired. Xia Li naturally noticed the hyena's panting, and quickly guessed that this was a show of power, and said with some amusement. Slow down, and don't save face for me. I underestimated you. You are very fast and have good physical strength. The hyena could also feel that the other party was giving him a way out, but was he the kind of person who couldn't let go of his face? However, the other party gave him a way out, and the hyena's attitude towards Xia Li couldn't help but improve. Xia Li was also a little speechless after hearing this, and then silently evaluated this team higher in his heart. It was indeed a good team, whether it was the captain or the team members. As for being slightly targeted, should he pretend to be cool and slap his face? Xia Li was not interested. What he had to do now was to quickly integrate into this team, and then improve his survival index and mission efficiency. What's the point of pretending to be cool and slapping his face? Tianzong and Fox also smiled when they saw this scene. Although they couldn't see each other's expressions because of the masks, they could feel that the atmosphere between the teams was slightly more harmonious than when Xia Li first came. Night. Unless it was a particularly urgent task, you still had to rest at night. After all, you also had to ensure the combat effectiveness of the team, and it was not the sooner you arrived, the better. Tianzong was also arranging the night shifts, probably the same as usual. Fox was the first in the first half of the night, then Tianzong was the second in the middle, and finally Hyena was the third on duty until dawn. Xia Li was not included in this arrangement, probably because it was Xia Li's first time, so no arrangement was made. Captain, I am also a perception ninja, and Fox is a medical ninja, so let Fox go to rest. I will be on duty in the first half of the night. Xia Li took the initiative to say. Fox did not speak. Tianzong looked at Xia Li and said, it's not that I don't want to arrange it for you, you can see it, this mission is prepared for you, so you will be the only one to take action later, so I arranged it this way, you just need to rest and wait for the mission to be carried out. Captain, I don't think I need special treatment, just follow the most reasonable arrangement. Xia Li and Tianzong looked at each other. That's right, the most reasonable ones are Xia Li, Tianzong, and Hyena. Xia Li and Hyena are one for perception and one for reconnaissance, and the last time after the first half of the night is relatively easier to endure. The most difficult and sleepy time is the responsibility of the strongest. Tianzong. Seeing Xia Li's resolute gaze, Tianzong's wooden face hidden under the mask could not help but soften a little. Finally, he nodded and said, okay, Fox, from now on, your duty position will be handed over to Moying. Okay. Fox didn't waste any words and handed a piece of wood to Xia Li. What is this? Xia Li was a little confused. He looked carefully and found a button on the wood. This is made by the captain. If you press it, an alarm will sound immediately to remind everyone. Fox replied. Well, I understand. Xia Li nodded and put away the alarm. Then, Tianzong, Fox and Hyena also went into their sleeping bags to rest, leaving Xia Li alone to guard the fire. Xia Li looked at the fire in front of him and smiled. This team is not bad. Chapter 84 Xia Li's first time. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. In the middle of the night, Tianzong opened his eyes, and then saw the faint firelight and Xia Li sitting next to him with his eyes closed, and was immediately startled. It's still a while before the handover time, Captain. However, before Tianzong could think about it, a voice rang in his ears. Suddenly, Tianzong opened his eyes wide. He thought Xia Li was asleep, but he didn't expect him to be so sharp. After seeing that the hyenas and foxes next to him were motionless, he thought of the breeze just now. At this time, Tianzong also understood that they actually underestimated Xia Li. In terms of his strength, he would not be a drag on any team. Maybe the other party is not a child of a big family, or he may be the purest genius, or both. Tianzong got up silently, without disturbing the hyenas and foxes, came to Xia Li and sat down, and began to add new firewood to the small fire. Mo-ing, you are really amazing. Tianzong exclaimed. If you don't show it, it's useless no matter how powerful you are. Xia Li opened his eyes and came out of the state of emptiness. In this state, he can not only rest, but also feel the strongest. If he was not worried that they would not believe him, Xia Li felt that he could do the night watch alone, and he could rest and feel at the same time. Well. Tianzong looked at Xia Li and didn't know what to say for a while. The other party did not have the pride of a child from a big family, nor did he seem to have the arrogance of a genius. The attitudes of the hyena and the fox are not intentional, so don't take it to heart. Tianzong thought about it and forced a topic. Well, I understand. If it were me, I would feel almost the same. Xia Li replied, then looked at Tianzong and said, in fact, you, the captain, were the same at the beginning, but you are better at hiding than the hyena. Tianzong was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help laughing, nodded and said, yes, I am also worried about your strength, because our team has never had the habit of abandoning teammates, so every teammate must be carefully selected, and you. Tianzong hesitated and didn't continue to speak. I was directly appointed by the Hokage-sama, and was regarded as a backdoor. Xia Li took over Tianzong's words and said, and also reached out to take some wood and put it into the fire. Yeah. But I will prove that I am qualified to join this team. Xia Li continued. In fact, you have already proved it. Tianzong couldn't help but soften his tone and said, the hyenas and foxes have treated you much better. Not enough. Tianzong didn't continue to speak, and thought about it and asked again, at this speed, we should be able to reach the destination tomorrow. Are you okay? Yeah, leave it to me, no problem. Xia Li paused, and after a moment of silence, he still said firmly. Okay. Then, the two of them didn't speak. After sitting together for a long time, Tianzong said, okay, you go to rest, and I will be on duty next. Okay. Xia Li nodded and walked towards the rest area. Looking at Xia Li's back, Tianzong's mouth curled up slightly. Maybe the Hokage really gave them a surprise. The next morning. Good morning, hyena. When Xia Li got up, he saw the hyena who was still on duty. Huh? You woke up so early. The hyena looked at the fox and Tianzong who were still sleeping, and couldn't help but be a little surprised. I'm used to it. Xia Li replied. Suddenly, the hyena's heart trembled. Even if the other party's strength has not been shown, the more they get along, the more they dare not underestimate each other. Some people show more than just strength. Soon, the Tianzong team started to rush again. This time there was no competition from the first hyena, and the speed was most suitable and appropriate. That afternoon, the group finally arrived at the mission location. Next, it's up to you, Mo-ing, we'll watch in secret. If there is a problem, we will take action, but I hope we don't need to take action. Tianzong looked at the hill over there and said. Well. Xia Li silently tightened the mask, and then walked out directly. Facing a group of non-ninjas, just faced them head-on. As Tianzong and the other two looked at Xia Li's back, Hyena couldn't help but say, Captain, is this mission really good? What's wrong with it? Tianzong asked. Looking at Mo-ing, he must be still young. Maybe it's his first time. Generally, shouldn't we just find one or two people? And it's better to kill those who have committed heinous crimes without any guilt. What Hyena said is right. It's really not reasonable. The first time I arranged a murderer who was unforgivable. Fox also said that even ninjas need to adapt. No one is a natural executioner. After 2 days of getting along, Hyena and Fox actually agreed that Xia Li was their teammate, and at this time they began to think about Xia Li. Hearing this, Tianzong couldn't help but smile, and also looked at Xia Li's back and said. Trust in Mo-ing, he will give us a surprise. Boy, what did you say? Are you here to wipe us out? In front of the gate of the mountain stronghold, a burly man looked at the little guy in front of him, and couldn't help laughing after hearing Xia Li's words. The big man's laughter slowly attracted many companions, but Xia Li didn't say anything more and silently pulled out his sword and held it in his hand. Little one, can you hold this knife? It looks like a good knife in good condition. It should be quite valuable. Bring it to you. A greedy and ferocious expression appeared on the big man's face, and he also took out his own weapon, an ordinary big stick. It was ordinary but very big, almost as big as half of Xia Li. Then, the big man raised the big stick and smashed it at Xia Li, showing no mercy at all just because Xia Li was a child. The next moment, Xia Li's figure disappeared directly from the spot, leaving the big man stunned. When he saw him again, the figure of the other party had already appeared in front of him. At the same time, something seemed to appear in the sky. The big man was a little confused, but since he appeared in front of him, don't blame him for being rude. A ferocious and twisted smile appeared on the big man's face, and he wanted to wave the big stick in his hand. However, the big man can't feel his hands. Where are the hands? Where are my hands? The big man was a little confused, and then the heartbreaking pain finally came from his arm, causing him to scream in pain and fall to the ground. At this time, he finally saw the extra. In the sky, it turned out to be his flying arms. I don't know when it was chopped off by Xia Li. At this time, the big man still didn't understand the opponent's strength and it was impossible. He used his remaining hand to pull towards the stronghold, still begging for mercy. Xia Li took a deep breath. Sure enough, at the last moment, his knife couldn't help but deviate a little. After all, this was really his first time, but, Xia Li looked at the big man who kept begging for mercy. His eyes narrowed slightly. He forced to calm down the fluctuations in his heart, and spoke while walking towards the big man. Sorry, I need to make you suffer a second time, but this time, it will be over. No. No, please, spare me. The big man looked at the young body wearing a patternless mask in front of him. If compared, it would not reach his waist at all, but at this moment, the other person looked like a devil in his eyes. I saw this demon lifting the sharp blade of death. Xia Li raised his hand and swung the last sword. This time, he did not waver again. He separated his body and head with one blow. Looking at the opponent's eyes that were about to bulge, he felt that he could not die anymore. Then, Xia Li looked at the big man's companion who had not yet reacted. After shaking his body twice, he actually rushed forward first. P.S. It seems that you all don't know Yamato's experience. Yamato fainted in the toilet from crying. To put it simply, Yamato was Orochimaru's experimental subject at the beginning, and later joined the Root Code A. At this time, he had no emotions. Later, after being influenced by Kakashi, he began to have feelings and resisted Danzo. As a result, he was almost raped. At that time, he was rescued by Kakashi, and was accepted by the third generation to join the Umbu and became Kakashi's team member. The code name during this period was Tenzo. Kakashi had already left the ANBU when Naruto was about 10 years old, so after Kakashi left, there was a high probability that Tenzo would take over as captain, which should be a year or two away. As for the familiar Yamato, it happened after Tsunade came to power, so it was still far away, above. Chapter 85 Bloody Storm. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. The fall of the gatekeeper made the people in the mountain village open their eyes wide, and they didn't understand how the gatekeeper fell, and they couldn't help but tremble. What are you afraid of? Isn't he just a young boy? Why are we afraid of him? At this time, a trembling voice encouraged. That's right, after all, these people are bloodthirsty bandits. Even if they didn't understand how the gatekeeper died, they were not completely scared and began to take out their weapons. Unfortunately, in this world, the gap between ordinary people and ninjas is really so big that it is difficult to make up. Xia Li didn't care about the morale of the other party at all, because in front of him, they were just a group of people who collapsed. Slowly, he raised the butcher knife. Every swing of the knife represents the disappearance of a life from this world. It seems that Emoing has a good heart. Fox looked at the situation in the mountain village and couldn't help but brighten his eyes. You call this a kind heart? The hyena looked at Xia Li, who was chopping melons and vegetables over there, and the corners of his mouth were a little bitter. Even if he was asked to complete it, although he would not hesitate, but could he really do it so easily? Of course, didn't you see that except for the first one, every knife that Emoing swung accurately hit the enemy's fatal point, reducing the pain that the opponent had to suffer. Anyway, they would die facing us ninjas. Isn't it good to die with less pain? The fox replied. The hyena was stunned for a moment, and it seemed that there was still a little truth when he heard it suddenly. Then the hyena couldn't help shaking his head. What a fart of truth, they would rather survive than die. Don't say it, follow me. Tianzong said at this time. Okay, but it seems that we don't need to take action at all, Captain. The fox replied. Yeah, that's right. Tianzong looked at the blood flowing all over the ground. He didn't expect this to happen. This mountain village was not small. There were hundreds of people in the village. At this time, Tianzong became a little worried again. He killed so many people for the first time. Could the other party really bear it? At this time, he didn't understand the decision of the higher-ups. Captain, I think, maybe the higher-ups didn't mean to let Emoing come alone, maybe? At this time, the hyena scratched his head and suddenly said, his head was the straightest. Suddenly, Tianzong and the fox froze, as if there was some truth. But they thought that such a simple task was prepared for Emoing at the first time. Is it possible that there was no particularly suitable task at that time? So, this relatively easy task was assigned to him. It seems that there is such a possibility. After all, in their opinion, such a task is enough for an experienced ninja to complete, and their team has only Xia Li, a newcomer, and the other party is a privileged household, so they subconsciously think that the higher-up specially selected Xia Li for training. What surprised them was that this training was a bit harsh for a newcomer. Now it seems that maybe they were wrong. Captain, should we take action? Fox also thought of this and asked. Tianzong looked at Xia Li, who had already hacked into the mountain village, and finally shook his head and said, no need, Emoing is almost done, it's too late. After Tianzong finished speaking, the corners of Fox and Hyena's eyes shrank. This speed was too fast. At this time, they thought of Xia Li's self-introduction at that time. Quick attack. Sure enough, he was not lying. In the mountain village, Xia Li stepped on the blood and walked towards the last person. The man did not look rough, as if he had some knowledge. At this time, he had no intention of resisting. He stared at Xia Li and the long knife in the other party's hand stained with the blood of his companions, and said for a long time. We just want to survive. Is that wrong? Xia Li paused after hearing this, but still swung the long knife in his hand mercilessly, and blood splattered everywhere. Xia Li's clothes had been soaked a little at some point, and the originally colorless mask was also stained with a trace of blood. He paid some attention to it at first, but he was too lazy to pay attention to it later. At this time, Xia Li looked at the fallen figure and spoke. Maybe, you are not wrong, but I am not wrong either. After speaking, Xia Li put away the long knife and walked out silently. His petite body looked like a law enforcer under the throne of the god of death among the pile of corpses. At this time, Xia Li saw Tianzong and the other three over there, walked over slowly, and said, "Captain, the mission is completed. Mo-ing, they are all some extremely evil bandits, don't have psychological pressure." Tianzong was also a little afraid that Xia Li would have a problem, so he didn't wait to go back and spoke directly here. "Yes, Mo-ing, although these guys were trying to survive at the beginning, what they did later had already turned into burning, killing, and looting, all of which are capital crimes." Fox also said, at this time, they also blamed the person who assigned the task. Why write it so clearly? Wouldn't it be enough to just write about the crimes they committed? He also wrote that the other party was an ordinary villager before, and took this path to survive. Really, it's unnecessary. But, for the sake of survival, no matter what, from their perspective, it is not wrong, no matter how incomprehensible this method is. Xia Li recalled the words of the last person who fell in his hands, and couldn't help but say, when Xia Li finished speaking, the three people around him suddenly felt depressed and blamed themselves. If the other party had a problem in their mind when they went on the mission for the first time, then the problem of them as teammates would be big. After Xia Li finished speaking, he came back to his senses. After seeing the eyes of several teammates, he couldn't help but want to laugh, but found that he really couldn't laugh now, and his face had already stiffened. In the end, Xia Li didn't force himself to laugh, but still said, "Don't worry, I'm fine, I just said that from their perspective, no matter what they do for survival, it's not wrong. But I never think I did anything wrong." Xia Li's voice was firm. Since he has embarked on this path, it means that he has to get used to this kind of thing. If he is shaken because of this, it can only mean that he is just like this. However, Xia Li couldn't help but look back at the bloody mountain village at this time, and his mind couldn't help but emerge the things that happened when he met the big toad immortal, as well as the other party's prediction, and this scene now, doesn't it just confirm the other party's prediction? A bloody storm, Xia Li murmured. However, Xia Li didn't expect that the other party's prediction would happen so quickly, but, what can this prove? Degeneration? Sin? It's a bit ridiculous. He is who he is, even if he really has to step on a mountain of corpses in the future, he will not change his goal. Chapter 86 Welcome Home. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. After hearing what Xia Li said, the three of them breathed a sigh of relief, but Hyena suddenly had an idea and asked. "Since the other party is not wrong, and you are not wrong, then whose fault is it?" Suddenly, Xia Li looked at Hyena with some surprise. What kind of question is this? Would a normal person ask such a question? However, this question also reminded him of a very famous black anime, which seemed to have the answer to this question. Oh, who knows? Maybe it's this world that is wrong. Xia Li's frivolous and questioning tone sounded in the ears of the three people, making the three people's bodies startled. Although I don't quite understand what it means, I feel like it's very powerful. And Xia Li, after saying this, it was really funny. Although he still couldn't laugh, he finally relaxed a little. At this time, the three people over there looked at the corpses of the mountain village behind them, and then recalled the words just now, and finally stopped treating Xia Li as a 12 or 13-year-old child, but a teammate of the same level as them. Mo-ing, take a break. I'll clean up the mess. Tianzong said at this time. They couldn't leave these corpses exposed like this. If there was any plague, it would be troublesome. Don't you need help? There are still a lot of corpses. Xia Li was a little confused. Don't worry, Mo-ing, the captain's ability is very suitable for cleaning up the mess. At this time, the hyena patted Xia Li on the shoulder and said. Xia Li nodded and looked at Tianzong's position. Tianzong had already completed the seal and then pressed his hands on the ground. The next moment, in Xia Li's somewhat shocked eyes, countless trees grew out from the ground and quickly buried all the corpses. At this time, Xia Li also understood what the hyena meant by suitable. It was indeed so. Is it amazing, Captain? Hyena asked beside him. Yeah, it's amazing. Xia Li nodded, his eyes flashed. It was indeed a blood inheritance that was easy to use, and it was very strong. If he were an opponent, maybe he would only have one chance when the other party didn't know he could use Flying Thunder God. Okay, let's go back. Tianzong said after he came back. Yes. At night, Xia Li wanted to continue to be on duty, but was rejected by 3 people at the same time. They all thought that Xia Li should rest more, so, Xia Li reluctantly returned to his resting place. Mo-ing, are you really okay? Tianzong next to him was still a little worried about Xia Li. Who asked Xia Li to be his team member? He was actually blaming himself for his previous negligence. It's okay, that's impossible. Xia Li was silent for a while and said, but don't worry, Captain, I'm fine. I will adjust it before the next mission starts. Although Xia Li is not a simple 10-year-old child, even in his previous life, he was just an ordinary worker. When facing such a thing, how could he not have a trace of psychological fluctuations? Even now, Xia Li is thinking whether he is born cold-blooded, otherwise he should not be so calm and can still think calmly. Sometimes, before you try something, you may not know that you can do it. And Xia Li is in this state now. Tianzong didn't know what to say when he heard it. Even though they had only been together for such a short time, he could feel the excellence of the other party. Hokage gave such a genius to him, which was also a trust in him, right? At this time, Tianzong's sense of responsibility became heavier. At the same time, Tianzong told Xia Li what the hyena said. Xia Li was also stunned when he heard it, and then shook his head and said, "It's okay, Captain, because I actually think so, and I'm fine, right? Go to sleep and have a good rest." Tianzong finally sighed. There was no danger to life in this mission, but could he really be safe in his heart? Even if he completed this kind of mission, he had better rest for a while, otherwise he was afraid that he would return to his former self. Yeah. The fox over there didn't speak all the time, but he was also very happy, because they might really have a good teammate. The next day, Xia Li opened his eyes, and his expression was a little tired, which was very rare. That's right, Xia Li didn't get enough rest. He had nightmares all night. Xia Li looked around. He was the last one to get up today. It really shouldn't be like this. It's still early, you can continue to rest for a while. Tianzong came over and said. No, let's go back to the village early. Xia Li replied. Well, that's good. It's normal to have nightmares for the first time, and it will get better later. Tianzong thought about it and agreed. There might be the other party's family in the village, so they should be able to recover better. Well. Xia Li nodded, and didn't wonder why Tianzong knew. Probably, they all went through this stage. This is for you, breakfast. Tianzong handed Xia Li a bowl of rice porridge. Xia Li was a little surprised, and then suddenly remembered the other parties would escape, and suddenly realized that other ninjas might not often carry things like bowls, but for Tianzong, isn't this something that he always has? Hyena, fox, we need to speed up our journey. Tianzong also said after Xia Li finished his breakfast. Yes. At Xia Li's home, at this time, Xia Li had separated from the team and returned to his empty home. His mother must still be working at this time. Xia Li thought that when his mother came back and saw him, she would probably be very happy. She must have been worried about him, but he had no choice. He couldn't really stop being a ninja, right? These were things that would happen sooner or later, and could only be smoothed out by time. Thinking of Sinai, Xia Li also thought of the time when Sinai's salary suddenly increased a lot. The other party was panicked and felt that her work was not worthy of these amounts. In the end, Xia Li said that the extra money was given to him by the third generation through Sinai, and Sinai calmed down and took it for granted, because Xia Li smiled. He should be the best in his mother's eyes, and any extraordinary treatment was normal in his mother's eyes. However, Xia Li still told his mother not to tell her about her salary increase, otherwise she might be excluded by her colleagues, and Sinai also agreed, but it was a pity that he wanted to continue to show off her son to his colleagues. Thinking of this, Xia Li felt a little funny. His mother really liked to show off herself. He had to keep working hard and strive to earn more capital for his mother to show off. That's great, maybe it's not bad to keep going like this. Xia Li murmured, unconsciously lying on his bed and closing his eyes. This time, Xia Li did not continue to have nightmares, and he slept very comfortably and sweetly. In the evening, after Sinai finished work, she returned home. She didn't look very good, and she was obviously worried about something. However, when she opened the door, she saw the familiar figure. Suddenly, Sinai's face showed an unprecedented light. All the fatigue disappeared at this moment, and finally smiled for the first time after seeing the letter, very gentle and happy. "Mom, welcome home." Xia Li stood there looking at Sinai and said with a smile. "Well, son, you too, welcome home." Chapter 87, Flying Thunder God's First Appearance. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Xia Li waited for a long time before receiving the notification for the second mission. This time it was not a mission assigned by the superiors, but was selected by Tianzong. Xia Li also understood that Tianzong was probably worried that he had not recovered, so he slowed down the progress. Xia Li just kept it in mind and appreciated the other party's kindness. Captain. Xia Li came to the meeting place for the mission and greeted Tianzong after seeing him. "Mo-ing, you are the first to arrive again." Tianzong looked at Xia Li carefully, his eyes lit up, as if he had indeed recovered, which made him finally relieved. Fortunately, he did not lead a genius to a dead end. "Well, I'm fast." "This is indeed." Tianzong could not deny that Xia Li's speed was faster than his, and he really deserved to be a genius. Soon, the hyena and the fox also rushed over and saw this mission one after another. Compared to the last mission, this mission was much more reasonable, because the target was finally placed on the ninja, but the target's strength was not strong, and it was estimated that he was still taking care of Xia Li. Neither the fox nor the hyena said anything, and it seemed that they had no objection to this. "Begin the action." Tianzong gave an order, and the second mission began. Xia Li followed silently, sighing in his heart. He also knew that Tianzong had good intentions, and he also appreciated his good intentions, but his actions were obviously inconsistent with his purpose, because he came to the Umbu to gain combat experience, not for pure missions. Such missions that increase difficulty step by step are good for novices, but for Xia Li, it is undoubtedly a waste of time. The first time, Xia Li would not say anything, and he also understood that he had to see blood. In fact, the normal process should be to get used to the blood of animals first, and then slowly transform into human blood. Even if the profession of ninja is a little special, the hundreds of people are really too much. Therefore, when Xia Li was carrying out his first mission, he would pause every time he mentioned the mission the night before. He was not afraid, but confused. Can he do it? In fact, Xia Li was a little unfamiliar with himself afterwards. He himself didn't know that he had such a side. Now, he has seen blood, and so much at once. If he hasn't recovered, he may need to continue to adapt. This kind of task is just right, but he has adapted. So, the second time is still this kind of experience-enhancing task, which is a complete waste of time for Xia Li. And the only way to stop wasting time is, Xia Li's eyes are flickering, and he made a decision secretly. This time, there is only one target, a ninja at the level of Konoha, who has just rebelled and killed his companions and fled, but he also suffered some injuries, so the speed of travel cannot be fast. Tenzo also quickly completed the information handover with some reconnaissance Umbu, and took Xia Li and the other two to chase quickly in one direction. On the way, Tianzong was also telling the action plan this time. Sure enough, Xia Li was still the one who took action, but when Xia Li took action, hyena would also attack and plunder the formation on the side. Yes. Hyena and Xia Li responded at the same time. Although Xia Li had his own plan, he was not stupid and would not choose this time to contradict his captain. Soon, the Tianzong team found the location of the rebel ninja. It seemed that the other party also chose to heal first, so he did not run far. Isn't this courting death? Xia Li wanted to complain, but it was not surprising. Some people's brain circuits were indeed a bit problematic. Not everyone could have a complete plan. This person was probably inspired temporarily and did not think of the subsequent retreat at all. Tianzong wanted to tell Xia Li some skills at this time, but the next moment, he saw that Xia Li had an extra kunai in his hand, and there were arcs of electricity jumping on his arm. Moing. Suddenly, Tianzong understood that Xia Li wanted to attack directly before he finished listening, and subconsciously wanted to stop him, but the kunai in Xia Li's hand had already been thrown out, towards the rebel ninja. At this time, the hyena and the fox also reacted, and they were a little confused. Why did Moing, who performed so well last time, be so reckless this time? Even if the opponent is just a chunin, if they alert the enemy like this, although their configuration will not allow the opponent to escape, if the opponent is only thinking about escaping, then won't it be more troublesome for them? Sure enough, he is still a child of a big family. Can't he bear it for just one mission? At this time, Tianzong and the other two couldn't help but have an idea in their minds, and at the same time, they were a little disappointed, but, before they were disappointed for a moment, Xia Li's figure had disappeared beside them. Tianzong and the other two's eyes widened instantly. How did Xia Li disappear? Why didn't they notice it at all? The three of them were moved at this time, and completely forgot the previous disappointment, and looked towards the rebel ninja. The rebel ninja had been running on the road, cursing in his heart. Didn't he just kill a companion and rob the other party's ninjutsu scroll? He was discovered at the first time, and now he can only betray. What's even more idiotic is that the guy threw a kunai at him before he died, forcing him to waste time recovering from his injuries. Otherwise, he should have left a long way. He had to hurry up, otherwise the people sent by Konoha would definitely catch up. He had to leave the land of fire quickly. However, the next moment, a sound of breaking wind mixed with a hint of thunder appeared in his ears. They caught up so quickly. Damn it! The rebel ninja also quickly judged the current situation and the position of the shuriken, but, he missed the speed of the kunai thrown by Xia Li. That was the kunai he threw with a little use of lightning escape, and the speed and power would not be low. So fast. The rebel ninja opened his eyes wide, and it was too late to dodge. The kunai scratched his cheek and his body rolled on the ground in a bit of embarrassment. However, the rebel ninja had no chance to get up again. He didn't even react. When did a ninja with a long sword in his hand appear above him? It was not until the blade fell towards his neck that he discovered the other party's figure, but what's the use of discovering it at this time? Use this less than a second to make a seal. If he could do it, he wouldn't have to kill people and rob goods. The blade fell, and the head and body were separated. Xia Li looked at the body of the rebel ninja and silently confirmed the identity of the other party to make sure it was not a substitute technique. Although he didn't think the other party had the opportunity to make a seal, it was always good to confirm it. After confirming it, Xia Li looked at the hiding place of Tianzong and the other three. At this time, Tianzong and the other three also saw the whole process of Xia Li cutting off the head of the rebel ninja, and they couldn't help but be a little confused. Until now, they have not reacted at all. Who can tell them what happened? Wasn't Xia Li still next to them just now? Why did he suddenly appear next to the rebel ninja and cut off his head? At this time, disappointment. The emotion of disappointment had already flown away to who knows where, and there was only shock and confusion. Chapter 88 Raikiri. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Tenzo and the other two also saw Xia Li waving at them, and they all reacted and came here quickly, but the three people, whether it was Fox, Hyena or Tenzo, looked at Xia Li with undisguised shock in their eyes. Captain, I'm sorry for not listening to your command. I will accept the subsequent punishment, but what I want to tell you is, can you please stop accepting such missions for me? I didn't join the UnlimitedFlow to waste time completing such missions. Xia Li first admitted his mistake directly, but he became impolite in the follow-up words, and he had to be impolite, because if Tenzo disagreed, then he would ask the third generation to change teams. Although he had a good impression of this team, but everything still had to be based on his purpose of coming to the UnlimitedFlow. Suddenly, Hyena and Fox looked a little bad, but thinking carefully, Xia Li's words were not wrong, because the two of them were only Chunin, especially Fox, his combat level was actually poor among Chunin. Now they both felt a chill on their necks when they saw the rebel ninja lying on the ground with his head and body separated. It was too terrible. The other party didn't resist at all, and his head was chopped off directly. If it were them, it would not be much better. Fortunately, they were teammates, not enemies. At this time, the hyena and the fox were also relieved. The dissatisfaction that had just risen in their hearts disappeared again. This was the shock brought by Xia Li's strength. Tianzong also looked at Xia Li with a complicated look at this time, then nodded and said, "I know. Later, I will continue to accept tasks according to the difficulty we accepted before." Okay. Xia Li finally breathed a sigh of relief and agreed. Tianzong pursed his lips at this time and continued, "Moing, it seems that we all underestimated you." Well. Xia Li did not deny it, and then said, "In this case, the captain will tell you the punishment for violating the order just now." "I accept the punishment." Although he said so, Xia Li was sure that he would not be punished. Hearing this, the fox and the hyena looked at Tianzong. If Tianzong really wanted to punish, they thought they should plead for Xia Li. No need for punishment. I was incompetent as a captain because I didn't realize the strength of my subordinates. So let it go this time, but it won't happen again. Tianzong said. Yes. At this time, the unhappiness between the teams finally dissipated. Hyena and Fox were excited that they had welcomed new and super powerful teammates. However, Tianzong was not so happy, because he felt that Xia Li would probably not stay in their team forever, because he couldn't see the end of his future at all. It would be a waste to stay in the Umbu, especially since his identity was not simple. Just as Xia Li said just now, he came to the Umbu to experience, not for the identity of the Umbu, and not to do missions. However, Tianzong did not say this guess, because no matter what, at least Xia Li is now a member of their team, and Xia Li was relieved. These days, he really liked this team. Not to mention that Tianzong was very strong. Hyena and Fox were also very good. Although the hyena's first attempt was impolite, it was actually a kind of wisdom. It would not offend him too much, but it could also initially test his character, so as to facilitate the decision of how to treat him in the future. In short, he had good teammates and a reliable captain. Now that the mission was resolved, what was there for Xia Li to be dissatisfied with? Soon, the group set out on the road back with the corpse of the rebel ninja. On the way, Xia Li couldn't help but think about the mission goal this time, because Xia Li found that the opponent's reaction was much slower than he thought, but it was also true. Who could have the reaction of the fourth generation? Even half of it was estimated that few people could achieve it. So, Xia Li threw the kunai and almost solved the opponent directly. Although the mission was completed, the effect was definitely not as strong as his performance with Flying Thunder God, so that the effect would be enough to support his subsequent approach. There was no problem with these. The problem was, Xia Li didn't use his full strength when throwing the kunai. If he had used full strength when strengthening the lightning escape, both the power and speed would be able to reach a higher level. In this case, will the slow-reacting rebel ninja die immediately? However, this seems to be useless for those ninjas with fast reaction speed. However, Xia Li is thinking, what if the speed can be faster? A thought jumps in Xia Li's mind, for example, Raikiri kunai. The use of Raikiri itself has an acceleration that makes the user unable to react. If this power is added to the kunai, the power may be reduced, but the sharpness of the kunai is not comparable to that of the hand. More importantly, if it can be done, then the side effects of Raikiri will be completely avoided. Moreover, in Xia Li's vague memory, it seems that there is really a Raikiri kunai, which should be used by Kakashi, but the memory is too vague to be sure. Of course, there is also a disadvantage. If the Raikiri kunai is empty, it means that a big move is missed. Xia Li's current chakra can't use Raikiri many times, so how to improve the hit rate of Raikiri kunai? Xia Li was thinking, and in the end, he still had to speed up the kunai itself. At this absolute speed, the precision of throwing is no longer necessary, and at this speed, even if you ask Uchiha to come over, it is difficult to say that you can add skills on top of it. that is an absolute speed advantage, accurate and fast. And can the speed continue to increase? Xia Li searched his mind about the memory of Naruto, but still couldn't think of it. It seemed that there was no more. Is there no way? The memory of Naruto is not good, so is there any way in other places in the past life? Xia Li slowly searched his memory, and then a dazzling light appeared in his mind. It was a super-electromagnetic cannon that crossed the sky, Misaka Mikoto. Although it may not reach that power, the principle should be borrowed. Xia Li looked at the arc in his hand. Although he did not have magnetic escape, he also remembered that one of his pitiful physics knowledge that he had not forgotten was, electromagnetics and electricity are inseparable. Although I said that, but, Xia Li recalled his physics knowledge. It was a pity that he did not travel through time after graduating from high school, but came through after college and working. His poor physics knowledge had long been returned to his high school teacher. In this case, he could only rely on himself to slowly explore and try. The possibility of success is not small, and the power of the electromagnetic gun. Xia Li's eyes flashed. It is completely qualified for him to spend more time trying to study. At that time, can the principle of the electromagnetic gun be combined with the Raikiri kunai? The initial velocity and the subsequent acceleration after separation. It seems that it is really, a bit interesting. At that time, how many people can react with such a reaction force? Even if they react, how fast can they be able to dodge? If it is really developed at that time, what will it be called? Super electromagnetic Raikiri kunai. Forget it, let's wait until it is developed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kunai. Sure enough, if you learn math, physics and chemistry, you will not be afraid to go to another world. However, there is one thing that makes Xia Li want to cry. His math, physics and chemistry are really not good. Chapter 90 Iron Country Mission. You are listening at NovelFlow.audio. Captain, what is the mission assigned this time? Hyena asked first. This mission is special. We need to protect the transport team to the Iron Country. Tianzang answered, and looked at Xia Li. Hyena and Fox were both startled when they heard this. Protect? Captain, aren't these missions usually done by the teams in the open? Hyena asked in confusion. Hyena was right. The work of the Umbu is usually not very clean. At least some of them are not allowed to be seen in the light. Some of the tasks in the open are also completed by the ninjas who graduated from the ninja school and their team leaders. That's right, but our mission is only to protect in secret. There will be another ninja team outside the Umbu to complete this mission in the open, but Mo Ying's mission is a little different. Tianzang said. Immediately, Hyena and Fox looked at each other. If it was before, they might have felt a little unbalanced, but now that they have fully seen Xia Li's strength, what is this imbalance? Xia Li was also startled at this time and looked at Tianzang. Tianzang did not explain immediately, but spread out the task scroll and said, take a look at this task yourself first. Xia Li retracted his gaze and looked at the scroll, and then found that the location of this task was a bit far away. The destination was actually the Iron Country, although the Iron Country and the Fire Country are adjacent, but, the Fire Country is very large. And the speed of the transport team cannot be compared with the speed of the ninjas. Soon, Xia Li also finished reading the task introduction. The task of the team on the surface was to send a transport team back to the Iron Country, and their task was actually just to protect two people back to the Iron Country. The two people they were going to protect were a grandfather and grandson. The grandfather seemed to be a very famous forger, master craftsman, who had forged weapons for many samurai, and even many ninjas would go to him to forge weapons. And master craftsman had a grandson, who was exactly 12 or 13 years old this year, and the important thing was that he rarely showed up outside. Therefore, Xia Li's mission is to pretend to be the grandson of master craftsman and guard beside master craftsman. As for the real grandson of master craftsman, he will naturally stay with master craftsman and usually hide. As for the enemies this time, they are actually some wandering ninjas on the surface, but according to the intelligence department of the Umbu, the mission may be participated by the Mist Ninja. Xia Li didn't feel strange about the Mist Ninja, because the forging of ninja tools there is also quite famous, And it is estimated that they really like the skills of master craftsmen. After reading the mission, several people felt that this mission is suitable for Tianzong's team. After all, the entire Umbu is now only Tianzong's team as small as Xia Li. Of course, if there is really no one, another way can be used, but this protection method is the best at present. After all, those people can probably guess that there will be someone protecting Master Craftsman, but it is hard to imagine that the grandson next to Master Craftsman is the one protecting him. And Xia Li is also thinking, forging master. In this case, can the future flying thunder god kunai be forged by him? After all, the material of the flying thunder god kunai is still very important. Although the mark of the flying thunder god will not disappear, if the material is not good and it breaks in the middle, then the mark of the flying thunder god will also lose its effect. This is a good opportunity. Mo-ing, this is the human skin mask sent from above. You should adapt to it first. The mission will start in 1 hour. Tianzong handed Xia Li a box at this time and said, "Okay." Xia Li took the box and walked into the inner room. He did not intend to expose his true face. Although ninjas have the most basic ninjutsu transformation technique, it is generally used temporarily and it is impossible to maintain the state of transformation technique all the time. Soon, Xia Li came out with a human skin mask. Oh, it looks good. The foundation should be good. If you don't wear a mask, you should be a handsome guy. Hyena whistled at Xia Li who came out. How is it, are you still adapting? Tianzong asked. Well, it's pretty good. After Xia Li put on the human skin mask, he only felt a little cold on his face, but he didn't feel particularly uncomfortable. Well, let's get started. Tianzong said without any nonsense. Yes. The next moment, the 4 members of Tianzong's team quickly left the Umbu and came to the mission site. They saw the team over there, but they had not started yet. Xia Li also looked at this team. There were many warriors in the team, and they should also be the guard team, and they should be from the Iron Country. Of course, there were some ordinary people who should be returning to the Iron Country by the way. It was a pity that they didn't know that this transport team was not safe. Of course, even if these ordinary people went back normally, it was not safe. After all, this was the background of this world, and there was no absolutely safe place. Captain, I'll go first. Xia Li said at this time. Well, be careful. Tianzong said. Okay. Xia Li nodded and looked at the largest manned carriage over there. That was where he was going to protect the target. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the spot and entered the carriage silently. The layout in the carriage is relatively simple, but there are many places where children can hide, which should have been arranged in advance. At this time, the master craftsman and his grandson have not come in yet, so there is no one here. Xia Li listened to the noise outside, closed her eyes silently, and entered a state of emptiness and darkness. She probably spent a lot of time in the carriage these days, but she still couldn't let go of what she could exercise, but she also had to just stay in good enough shape. Who knows when the enemy will attack. After a while, Xia Li heard someone finally coming in from the carriage, and slowly opened her eyes. She saw an old man with gray hair but full of energy, and a covert 12 or 13-year-old man in his hand. Young man. Are you the ninja that Konoha arranged to protect us? So young. It's not sure whether you can beat me, how can you protect us? Xia Li, the grandson of Master Craftsman, seems to be called Craftsman Toruya, curiously asked. Although the words were unpleasant, there was no hint of malice in his tone, as if he was just out of pure curiosity. Xia Li was not angry either, but the next moment his figure appeared directly in front of Toshin Tetsuya. He also put his hands on his hair, rubbed it, and said, "Since Konoha sent me to protect you, then you have to believe in my strength." Jiang Xinsha also felt the touch on his head, and Xia Li suddenly appeared in front of him, his mouth wide open, and then his eyes also showed a strong light, which was curiosity. When the craftsman next to him saw this scene, he also smiled and said, "I'm sorry, the kid is not sensible, I have to rely on you for the rest of the journey." Xia Li nodded silently and said nothing.